I'm Russ Jones with the YouTube channel Smoky Ribs BBQ, and today I'm going to show you step by step how to do a delicious gumbo. This is a fantastic alternative to any holiday meal. The kind of gumbo I'm making is a chicken and sausage gumbo. Now you could easily, if you have access to fresh seafood, you could do a seafood gumbo, and it's basically the same. Everything I'm doing here would be the same other than two things, and one of them is right now I'm making a chicken stock, plus I'm cooking the chicken. So I've got 4 quarts or 1 gallon of water. I've got it up to a boil. We're going to add in 1 tablespoon of salt. I've got 1 tablespoon of black pepper going in, and I've also got the classic mirepoix going in. This is 1 whole onion, just rough cut. I've got it quartered actually. And I've also got 3 carrots, and I've got 2 stalks of celery just cut up into big chunks. We're going to strain all that out. All we're looking for is the flavor that that's going to bring. If you were doing a seafood stock, this is where you would put your shrimp hulls and your shrimp heads. You would put it in here. That gives it that seafood flavor. But like I said, I'm doing chicken, so we have actual chicken going in. I'm using chicken thighs. So not only is this going to introduce some chicken flavor into this broth, but it's also going to cook these chicken thighs. Going to bring this back up to a boil, then I'll reduce it to a simmer. We'll let these cook until these thighs are pretty much shreddable. But now we're going to make a roux. It all starts with a roux once you get everything ready. And roux is typically done with 1 part oil and 1 part flour, or really any kind of fat. Some people use butter. I personally don't use butter unless I'm going for more of a blonde looking roux, but a dark roux, I either use oil, and a lot of times I'll use lard. So I've got a cast iron skillet heating up, and I'm going to add about 1 cup. That's looking good right there. We're just going to melt that in. And 1 cup of all-purpose flour. So regardless how much oil you use, just remember you put that much flour, 1-to-1 ratio. I'm going to take, this is called a roux stir because it's got a flat edge, and that allows you to scrape the bottom. We're just going to work this flour into this lard, and that's what you're looking for, a nice smooth texture. And so you know, I have my burner set to a medium low. Now the darker this gets, the lower you have to get your burner to where it's at its absolute lowest so you don't burn it. But this is what they would call a blonde roux, and we're going for like a chocolate bar color. Now one thing I like to do is I like to season everything as I go. And what happens most of the time is at the end, you're going to find out that it's just about perfect. You don't have to tweak it very much at all. And so I'm going to go in with like a 1/2 teaspoon. This is a kosher salt, and about a 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper. This is probably the most labor intensive part of making a gumbo. And the reason being, you can't walk away from this. You have to constantly stir and scrape the bottom. You can take like 2 seconds to reach and grab something and get right back to it. You have to stand here for the duration it gets the color you want. So it normally takes around 45 minutes to 1 hour just sitting here stirring and taking care of your roux. And I'll bring you back whenever we get to that color I'm looking for. So this is what I'm talking about. This looks almost like a chocolate ganache. It's definitely the color of like milk chocolate. And let me tell you real quickly what I did. I get it up, I push it just as far as I think I can go without burning it. Keep in mind, if you burn it, you got to throw it out and start over. That's why I encourage you to do this at a very, very low heat. Your chances of burning it go way down. If you are getting impatient and want to kick the heat up, you could end up with a problem. But once I get to that part, I turn the fire off and I keep stirring it, and I let that residual heat continue to cook this for like 10 minutes. Once I know there's no danger of it burning on the bottom, then I just let it cool off a little bit. You don't have to let it cool completely, just to where when you go in with these cold, wet vegetables, there's not a real violent reaction. And to be honest with you, it's pretty cool right now. It's cool to the touch. So I've got what is referred to as the Cajun Trinity. And for this amount of gumbo, that is 2 onions, 1 bell pepper, and 4 stalks of celery, diced up. Pour that in into our roux. Then I'm gonna bring the heat back into it. And as I mentioned earlier, I season as I go. So we just added all these vegetables. They too need seasoning. So I'm going to just add probably around a half a teaspoon and some more black pepper, about a half a teaspoon. All right, we got our heat on, and all I want to do is just sit here and stir all this in, and that lard is going to actually cook the onions, the bell pepper, the celery. And I'm going to continue to cook this and stir this until we get a nice tender result on our veggies. As you can see, we're back up to a good simmer. We've been going about 8 minutes. Our vegetables are getting kind of semi-tender. I want to add some garlic. That's about 5 cloves of minced garlic. Just going to let that garlic go for about a minute just to release its flavors and its oils. At that point, we're going to bring a bigger pot out here to start building this gumbo. So this is the pot I'm using. This is going to be kind of a small amount of gumbo. Trust me, you can make them a lot bigger than this. And to do that, you would double your roux recipe. You would double everything I'm doing here. And you would season it according to the amount of what you got in there. So with that said, take and transfer all of this goodness into the bottom of this pot. So our roux is hot, but this stock is completely cooled off. It's cold, and that's usually a good combination to where it won't clump up on you. Let's throw a cup in here, and we're just going to work this in. So the amount of liquid you use in this is totally dependent on the consistency you want. Some people like a thicker gumbo, some people like a thinner gumbo. I like it somewhere right in the middle. I prefer a Creole style gumbo. Creole style gumbo gets tomatoes, and I've always used it. I always will. I just love the combination of tomatoes because this will get okra as well. If you don't want tomatoes in your gumbo, don't add it. But I'm going in with 28 ounces. These are stewed tomatoes, and these have been sliced. Throw water and all in there. That's one reason you don't want to go too much water or too much stock right out of the gate, because some things we're adding will carry a certain amount of moisture as well. So the roux is made with flour, right? Flour is a thickener, and you won't know the full power of its thickening ability until you get it up to a simmer or a boil. And I will say this, the darker you get a roux, the less thickening power it has. The lighter the roux, the more thickening power. So I'm going to add about another 2 cups of that stock for now. Now these canned tomatoes obviously already have sodium when they're packed, so no need to add more salt for the tomatoes. But what I do want to add is 2 bay leaves. Those are fresh bay leaves. You can use the dried. And I also have a Creole seasoning. Use your favorite Creole Cajun seasoning, but look for salt free. We've already seasoned this as we went, so you want something with no salt. This is actually one I put together myself. I'm going to start with about 2 teaspoons, and we'll be adjusting that as we go. Been boiling around 10 minutes. It was still a little thick, so I added 1 more cup. I've got it kind of thinned out to my liking. Keep in mind, I will be adding okra in about 30 or 40 minutes, and that too is a thickener. Then we'll see what it looks like before we add any more stock. And the meat itself will go in within the last 30 minutes of this cook. This gumbo, once I'm satisfied with the thickness, is actually going to simmer for 3 hours. Some people don't like okra in their gumbo, but let me tell you, if it don't have okra in it, it's just simply not gumbo. Now the biggest reason they don't like okra in it is because it makes it kind of slimy to the mouthfeel. So the way you get around that is you layer your okra out on a sheet, on a cookie sheet, and you bake it. You just bake it for like whatever it takes at 350 degrees, 45 minutes to an hour till it just starts to crisp up a little, and that's going to cure it from being slimy. So we're going to add the okra in. This is 2 cups of okra, and it just come out of the oven. Let's stir that in. Now we just added the okra, so guess what? More seasoning. I'm going in with another teaspoon of this Creole seasoning for starters, and another half a teaspoon of salt, and a half teaspoon of black pepper. One last ingredient, right before I put the lid on, I'm going in with the chili habanero, the El Yucateco hot sauce. Got 1 tablespoon going in. That's just going to add another beautiful element to this gumbo. Gotta have the hot sauce. Let's see what we're looking like here. Oh man, that's a pretty color on that gumbo. We are at the end of this. We've got everything in it except for the protein. We're doing that right now. We're going to add the chicken. That's 6 chicken thighs, 1 pound. I'm using a smoked pork sausage. You can use that, use your favorite, or you can use an andouille sausage, any sausage of your choice. Stir that in good. And we did do a taste test on this. No salt needed, no anything needed. It's really good. All right, we're gonna let that go for about 30 minutes. It's fully cooked, but we're just gonna cook an additional 30 minutes. Put the lid on. Anytime you do gumbo, plan to do it a day in advance, a day before. Holidays coming up, you're gonna be making all kind of plans anyway. Just know that you need to make this the day before, and there's 2 reasons. By putting this in your refrigerator overnight, it's got to come down in temperature first, but once it does, gets close to room temperature, this will go in the refrigerator with a cover on it. It'll sit there overnight. All the flavors are going to marry, and it's really going to elevate the flavor of this even better tomorrow. It tastes fantastic right now. But another key reason is all that lard that we used and all the chicken fat that melted in that stock, all that's going to rise to the top. It will solidify overnight. That's why I prefer lard over vegetable oil. The lard will solidify, and tomorrow morning I'll be able to scrape all that off the top of it very easily, reheat it, and from there we'll make rice and give you a taste test. We'll see you in the morning. Well, it's the next day, and we heated up some of this gumbo. We didn't heat it all up. We just heated up what we thought we'd eat, and we're getting ready to try it for the first time. It's had all night to marinate and really get good and come together. And so you know, there is rice in the bottom of this. I like to use like 2 tablespoons in a bowl this size. I like my rice floating in it. I don't like a whole lot of rice. Now, one thing I like to do right there, right before I eat, is I like to go in with just another dab or 2 of this hot sauce. It's El Yucateco hot sauce. Give that a little mix. And for the first bite. Oh man. You got to love gumbo. I'm telling you, if you've never had it, I hope you try this. This is perfect for any of your holidays coming up. This is not going to last me long, I assure you that. Oh yeah, got a nice little Cajun kick to it going on. Really good. Hope y'all enjoyed this video. I'm Russ Jones with El Yucateco.